unjustly accused people, mainly Nora Wall. But he had also written an article, defending John Charles McQuaid against ludicrous allegations. He wasn't the only one to do that, but he was the only journalist to defend Nora Wall. So I was talking to him at one stage about the Sisters of Mercy, and he just said, look, I'm not going to stick out my neck on behalf of people who won't defend themselves. Now, he was one of the very few who was prepared to defend falsely accused religious, but he wouldn't stick out his neck anymore on behalf of people who won't defend themselves. It's because the church won't defend itself that it has so few defenders.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Why isn't the church? And I feel very sorry for people who are very religious, who were let down by the church and not defending themselves as much as they should have done. They should have defended the people of old. No, it's probably because if they don't have the historical background, the historical knowledge, or they're not interested in going back that, they're interested in their own religion, their own beliefs, and practicing their own religion, and they're not bothered with the past. But they have allowed the people who are very religious, they've let them down. They've let down their own congregation by allowing this nonsense to go ahead. And I'm often surprised that why doesn't the Vatican, remember the Counter-Reformation when all this stuff was being labelled against them, yes. Anti-Catholic stuff was being labelled. They got a Counter-Reformation and they were able to counteract all the lies and nonsense that was going on at that time. Why don't they do something similar now?
Well, I was speaking to one man, he died a few years ago. He was Irish, he was once the worldwide head of the Vincentian Order. And again, it was about Sisters of Mercy. And he said that originally they were naive. And they started apologising to these people because they felt, these so-called victims were screaming abuse at them and accusing them of murder also. Apart from the Christian Brothers, the Sisters of Mercy were practically the only other ones who were accused of killing a child. But, sorry, what was I going to say? Yes, he said originally they were naive, and then after that they were terrorised by the victims and the media that were supporting them. So they went from naivety to terror. And I suppose a joke I told somebody afterwards, what was this old joke about America? It's a country that went from barbarism to decadence without passing through an intervening period of civilization. The Sisters of Mercy went from naivety to terror and silence. But never, after they lost their naivety, they never came to a stage where they would defend themselves and tell the truth. So they went from barbarism to decadence without passing through an intervening period of civilization. Yeah. Well, then I suppose I'm exaggerating. I tend to go over the top. But that's it.
But you see, another point is their naivety about the state. When they start off, they think that they're going to cooperate with government inquiries and all that, and these inquiries are going to be perfect, and they just are not. They're not even remotely perfect. They're mischievous. So like, for example, I was talking to one of the priests that was handling this in Tuam. He seemed to be the guy that the Archbishop was looking at. He does a lot of history as well. And he was talking about the appointment of the one historian of the 3 members of the Mother and Baby Commission. And this is going to be great, and it'll solve the problem, whatever. But it's hopeless naivety. The reasons why you get this media hype and these commissions of inquiry, in my opinion, are political. It's been brilliant in the passing of all these referendum campaigns, etc. And at a high level, in the deep state in Ireland, they know that perfectly well. It was never going to be the case that the state inquiries were going to be honest and would genuinely find justice and truth or whatever. That was not what they were designed to do, in my opinion. That's naivety about the state. And the church and the state, for me, are far too close in modern Ireland. Like, I know it's a totally unrelated issue, but I was just looking at a video of this priest speaking in Knock just a few days ago. And he was given this lecture about angels and wonderful angels. And then he gave an example of angels that are coming down to earth at present. And they're members of NEMFAT, the government team that are doing this. They're angels on earth, and don't question what they do. This, you can see the state and the church. The church is just following on far too closely for the state. It needs to cut out the naivety and see the state as the enemy, at least at times, and stop cooperating with these inquiries. they're not going to help them get at the truth at all. Quite the opposite, I would say.
There was, I touched on it briefly in my book because I wasn't really didn't want to go into it, but it was the Ryan Commission report. Is all, and Rory, you might answer some of this. In it,
I gave, I was one of those who gave evidence as part of what do you call it, Let Our Voices Emerge. It was an organisation at the time that defended people who were falsely accused. So I gave evidence as part of that group.
But what I found was, now I'm old enough to have been in school in the days of corporal punishment, and I got hit several times. I was a bad speller, so I got hit more than most. That was the way to improve my spelling, was to get a whack with a bamboo cane. And if you ever watch Pink Floyd, look for Pink Floyd The Wall. It starts off with a different video, a different song called The Best Years of Our Lives, which is about children being hit by teachers and being abused and all the rest of it. That was the kind of abuse that was going on in those days. But if a teacher did that today, what they did back in the 1960s, 70s and before that, they would be accused, they would be up in court very quickly charged with child assault. But in those days, that wasn't assault. That was just normal child discipline. And this is what I think happened in the Ryan report. What they did was, they redefined that using presentism, which is present day standards. And when they looked at the industrial schools, people who were punished, and it does mention specifically hit with bamboo sticks, with canes, with leather straps, all the rest of it, that was physical abuse, and that was fait accompli, then everybody was abused in the system. Now if you do that, if you use the Ryan Commission's criteria and apply it to the other schools within the states, we'll all get compensation.
That's true. I would definitely get it myself here.
Yeah, we will get it for the abuse we suffered in school, for that. And this is what happened was, the Ryan Commission, and there was arguments over it, I do believe, at the very start, they said they wanted to define physical abuse as being hit by any implement, be it anything, or hit by fists or all the rest of it. And it appears as if there was some debate going on between the politicians as to whether that should be included in the terms of reference. Ryan won out, and that commission won out. And what they've come up with is something complete anathema to history. That's not what done. No, I don't begrudge anyone their compensation. And I think the reason that they want to hide all the testimonies that were given to the Ryan Commission and put them away for 50 years, a long time, longer, 50, 60 years, I don't know, I can't remember what it is, but it's longer than government secrets are held, is because if anybody read the testimonies that were given, they'd say, and they went to school, we're entitled to compensation too.
Yeah. And a lot of them could be just fraudulent. You see, if you're going to have a legal type of process, totally secret like that, and people are going to get money to say that you're abused, I mean, obviously some of it is just going to end up fraudulent.
Yeah.
And people would see that if they were able to look at the report. It's fascinating, like, if you go into the Twitter sphere and all that, the secrecy behind these reports, which is now kind of becoming well known, the fact that testimonies are held for so long, it's always assumed that they're covering up for the Catholic Church or so. I would say it's the complete opposite. Yeah. They need to back up they couldn't back up their allegations with the actual facts, so they had to put them into secrecy, as well as the government files that were released in 2000 and pulled back in, if they were revealed. You see, if you look at that, for example, in the Tune case, there is one government inspector's report was revealed. It was revealed under a kind of FOA report to a lady that's doing a lot of these inquiries. But none of the others were ever revealed. Now, my guess is that they revealed only that report because in the interpretation of it, you could see it as terrible in its depiction of the whole. And the other ones are just kept secret because they say the complete opposite. That's my guess. Yeah. And I think if you look at the pattern, that's what's happening. People think it's the opposite. They think there's the church covering up. I think, there's a political agenda to hit at the church, really, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think they made a huge mistake when they went to give compensation. But I'm just reminded of the Carol Beach affair, which only kind of played out recently over in England. And I mean, Carol Beach was a children's nurse who claimed that when he was a child, he witnessed children being murdered by a paedophile ring within the House of Commons. It caused consternation, as you can imagine, and it cost £2 million investigation was launched out of it. There was no truth to it whatsoever. But when you looked into the motivation, why did he want to do it? He had already got the compensation. He spent it on a car because they don't give as much compensation over there. So he got £12,000 or something like that. He blew it on a car. His wife, who was in the process of divorcing him at the time, didn't realise what was going on. And he had a book written. He had so many number of words written on the book, and he wanted to become an international speaker on child abuse. this was the delusions that they have in their mind. And it very nearly paid off for him. You know, there was no evidence. He got a lot of credence from a lot of people. And it now turns out he's serving 18 years in jail because they found out he was just a liar. And not only that, he was a paedophile on top of it.
You know, it was extraordinary. But the thing is, he did this murder of the undead thing as well. He was basically accusing, Ted Heath and the head of MI5 and the head of MI6 and the head of the British Army as being a member of a ring that were actually killing children. So it was kind of linked to the Irish thing. But whereas the people got away with it in Ireland, he didn't get away with it. Well, let me think. Of course, one reason is, yes, he accused individuals. I'm just thinking, oh no, there was some individual accusations in Ireland. The Sister of Mercy, Sister Zavieras, she was accused. But in general, they made general allegations of child killing against the Christian Brothers. They didn't name a specific brother who was supposed to have killed a child, which would have been difficult to do because no child died at the time. So Carl Beach went in too much. He accused individuals of killing children, and that's what brought him down. And generally speaking, that didn't happen in Ireland. The allegations were more amorphous, and they kind of got away with it.
But I believe also, all you had to do was to report it to the police, whether it's true or not. Report it to the police and you're given a crime number. You can then go and claim compensation on the basis of that crime number.
Yes,
simple as that to get compensation. So if you want to get a lot of compensation, we'll tell you how to do it. And that's behind an awful lot of the cases here.
And in Ireland, as you say, there's vast amounts of money. It's serious money that they're getting.
Oh, we give big money.
And as you pointed, it could be scientifically shown in Ireland that there was one inquiry, is it symptophacy, you know, the one where you have the womb.
Symphysiotomy.
And they were able actually to establish then from the X-rays that people were claiming this compensation, a vast amount of money, who definitely, you know, it couldn't have affected at all. They were able to show scientific, that there's very serious numbers of people coming forward, claiming all this abuse, blah, 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 were actually just lying about it. And they were able to establish that.
There was one where a lot of them didn't have the
they
didn't have the operation. About 1/3 of claimants or something didn't have the operation at all.
Yeah.
That's right. And yet they claimed compensation, and some of them got it, I think.
Judge Harding Clark, who was running that particular scheme, she used the words confabulation, false memories. What was it? Confabulation, lies, and false memories. So it was all false memories that they had. And she reckoned that because they'd been through a traumatic birth, that they had imagined this and they'd actually come to believe it themselves. That's confabulation is about. And it led them to have these false memories of having a symphysiotomy, which they didn't have. Yeah. And when you have access to impartial evidence, which none of the other tribunals had, and you can test it scientifically, there's an awful lot of fraudsters in there. Absolutely. Without a shadow of doubt. Wherever you get compensation going like that, big money, you will get fraudsters. And the more lurid the allegations, the more money they think they're going to get.
Yeah. So anybody like to make any last comments?
No, but I would. I produced a booklet on this.
Yeah, just before I'll get everyone to maybe just state the name, a little bit of background, and how we can learn more about them, or any books or blogs with it. So we'll have the camera on Eugene, and perhaps I'll start with you.
Okay, there's the camera. Hello there, my name is Eugene Jordan. I'm a historian specialising really in the historian of science. I'm the immediate past president of Galway Archaeological Historical Society and the current vice president. I've written a book that's taken me many years of research because I've known that a lot of this, what's supposedly evidence of child abuse which took place at the Tuam Mother and Baby Home and other mother and baby homes is in fact false. And I have written a book entitled The False History Underpinning the Irish Mother and Baby Home Scandals. And I go into great detail about using the scientific evidence as much as I can that this is a total fabrication. Most of it is a total fabrication. However, I don't assess anybody's claim that they were abused. If they get compensation for it, good luck to them. Nothing to do with me. But as a historian, I'm very disappointed in my fellow historians that they have fallen down on the job.
And the name of your book?
False History Underpinning the Irish Mother and Baby Home Scandals.
And where can we get that? Or
I'm looking for a publisher at the moment, so it's forthcoming. but I have a preview of it up on Amazon if you want to have if you can't wait for it to come out. There's an advanced copy of it up on Amazon Kindle.
Can people find you on Twitter or Facebook or social? Or
Yeah, fallshistory.ie is the website I've set up to support the book.
Okay, thanks, Eugene. And now we'll go over to Rory.
Yes, well, I would have liked to have written a book, but I haven't got maths was my subject at school. I have a lot of difficulty in writing. So basically I have a blog, irishsalem.blogspot.com. And I didn't say so in my talk, but the reason I have done all this over the past 20 years and more, I was a De La Salle brother for only 3 years, in 1966 to 69. I actually spent most of my time in training, and my novice master was a Brother Maurice Kirk, K-I-R-K, so I have written a couple of articles about him, which you can find if you Google his name on the internet. So that's basically why I'm doing this, not even for living people who are accused today. I'm something of an ideologue, and I'm doing this because of ideas that were put in my mind 50 years ago, and that I'm still acting out. But I blame or give credit to Brother Maurice Kirk, and also to a Father Michael Sweetman, who was Brother Maurice called in him to give us an 8-day retreat at the end of our novitiate. So I have Father Sweetman, I've written about him on the internet as well. And it was a strange situation. Brother Maurice was definitely a conservative. He was something of a radical priest. So there was just this one occasion, short period in history, where the two came together, and in a way they produced me. But I think they would both be quite surprised. In any case, I have this blog, and I suppose I've printed out a few pamphlets from the blog, but the main one is blood libel in Ireland, directed against Catholics, not Jews. And I've concentrated on these false murder allegations against the Christian Brothers and the Sisters of Mercy, and one against the Passionists, because, as I say, you can prove it. Even decades later, you can prove that children were not murdered. So that has been my speciality.
And the name of your blog again?
It's irishsalem.blogspot.com. Now, let me see. I don't know if you can see it on this. There's some details at the back there. But if you remember the Salem witch hunt, so I call mine Irish Salem. .blogspot.com.
Okay.
So that's that.
And now over to yourself, right?
Well, I've done a lot of work on Irish history. I've spent many decades of my life in and out of every archive in the country, every library in the country, including all periods. I do a lot of medieval history. And I've written a lot of books, mostly on history, but also on modern day politics. And you can see the list of them there at orwellianireland.com, just www.orwellianireland.com. And that includes my book on the Tuam story, which I think is pretty comprehensive. And in the talk I did today,
All of the books.
oh yeah, that's the Tuam story.
It's called At Tuam Babies.
Yeah, at Tuam Babies. Yeah. And the talk I did today is mostly a chapter in this book on the abortion referendum. I've written 12 books about it, and I put in a chapter. I was talking about abortion because there is a big political element to this for me. And what happened was, in my opinion, the abortion referendum, the government got it through partly by associating abortion with the Catholic Church. So you blacken the Catholic Church, and then you link the Catholic Church into various things that they're trying to get rid of. And I was just pointing out that this is a ridiculous way of doing things in this book on the abortion referendum. And also, if you're on Irish political fora or Twitter, my handle is Scalorabot, and you'll see that in a lot of different areas.
On Twitter?
Yeah, to Twitter as well. Scalorabot. SCOLAIREBOCHT. So if you look about it, I'm a lot of, and can I just say too,
It translates as the poor scholar.
the poor scholar.
scholar, yes.
Yes, the poor scholar. And you know, I've used that handle for decades. And so some people will point out, you know, there's two ways of looking at that. You could be the poorest scholar, and you mean you're a bad scholar, you know. But I'd like to point out that's just a financial thing. Traditionally, you know, poorest scholar is just it used to have like you know, in Ireland in the past, you'd have scholars go around from X to Y, and they'll be, you know, hopefully learn it, but it's good. And I'd also like to thank, if I might, Father Maurice Colgan. He's from the Dominicans in Cork, and he was responsible, you know, for inspiring this conference. I'd also like to thank Vincent Canny, who helped me to print out some of these books. And I'd like to thank all the other people, because what happened was I gave this speech in June, and a lot of people were very interested in it, and they thought it was great. And the idea was to do it in Dublin, but we've been, you know, we've been going from pillar to post with COVID and with all the rest of it. And so here's where we are anyway. Hopefully people will find some.
The Green Book, what's the title of that?
The Irish 2018 abortion referendum, Why the Good Guys Lost.
And the name of your website again, people can find more about your books.
Yeah, orwellianireland.com.
Okay, that's fine. I think that's enough for
Right.
today, folks. So,
Good.
yeah, I want to thank you again, Brian, Rory, and Eugene. So, thanks very much, folks.
And thank you, Catholic Arena, as well, for filming this. Many, many thanks.
So thank